Was part of the Hoffbauer Preserve an employment center also
No,
It's all residential.
on the comp plan?
no, it's not. It's quite possible, I mean, you can't really see on the shading of the property, there could be, I can't see it, Mr. Kraft, but the Hoffbauer property is this kind of green and orange shaded area here, and then the purple is the employment center.
Okay, I see what you're
So
saying. Yeah.
there could possibly be a sliver, I just don't know the dimensions of this, but there could be a sliver of property in here that, you know, would have originally been designated as employment center. But maybe the way that
And that was
it's
part of our
possible.
discussion with Hoffbauer, right, as well, is that it was bordering up against that employment center district, right? And so that would be a bit of the transition from the existing neighborhoods to it's hatched, so
Yeah,
it's,
so I think, and again, I don't know the dimensions, but it's possible that there's a sliver of this that could have been made a part of the Hoffbauer property. But if I recall, it was a narrow strip, and I
Very
don't.
minimal, if anything.
right, and so that was mixed.
You remember, I mean, you're kind of involved with all three of those properties, do you?
So this
you
was mixed
remember?
residential open space, right?
Yeah.
I thought there was a sliver of.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that the comp plan's, you know, a guide, and obviously you folks and council, you know, need to make good decisions.
It is, and we recognize that, and you know, it is a guide, and that's why I said not everything fits neatly into a box. And we try to evaluate and, you know, make the best decisions that kind of fit in with what the intention was. But yes, there has to be, you know, some flexibility, I mean, to some degree, but we have to be, you know, reasonable on both sides. And I think, you know, I think that we have, you know, tried to maintain that reasonableness because, I mean, you're here. I mean, we didn't just say, no, this doesn't fit at all and, you know, try again. I mean, we're trying to listen and make a good determination here, the best one that we can. What else do you have, Mr. Chairman?
I think that's all that I have, at least at this point. I mean, I think with where we're at, I don't necessarily feel comfortable, you know, pushing a vote at this point based on the way that our code is written. I think even if we do close the public hearing tonight, we'd essentially have to make a recommendation one way or another next meeting, right? 45 days from the end of the public hearing.
Right.
So my preference would be that we take that time to understand a little bit more, get time to review what was provided and make sure there's nothing additional that we have from an ask. But I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation at this point.
Ms. Mayor, do you have any other comments or concerns?
I would agree, just to kind of gather, just having those conversations and just really seeing that, because it is a big decision to make. And I know council has talked about adhering to the comprehensive plan, but I know it's a guide, but we're trying to utilize it so that way, as we're making decisions, nothing surprising comes up and, you know, to residents and everything. So I would like to have that extra time to go over.
I agree with everything that's been said here, you know, and maybe taking some more time, but one of the things that I think would be a good recommendation to come with next time would be maybe some proof about, maybe from the EPA or whatever, that the quality of the water, that by the time it's getting to these storm retention ponds and these bioswales, that really there's nothing in there that's going to affect the Darby, because I'm sure you can tell it's a very big concern, you know, with us and with the community. So if you have some EPA records that show that these systems are working, that's not going to be an issue, then I think that could be helpful.
Yeah, so I agree, and some of the concerns that the engineer brought forward, if you have a report that you can forward to them, your ideas, recommendations.
I can type something up.
You know, the things that we've talked about here, if you can, you know, try to consider those and come back. I would motion that we table this application for tonight, and ask that you bring some of these you know, answer some of the questions that we've had so that we can, you know, make a better informed decision.
Can I second that?
Mr. Adler,
Yes.
Mayor Carney,
Yes.
Mr. Swain,
Yes.
Mr. Jaskowitz.
Yes.
With that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Just as a follow-up to that, it's related, but not necessarily with this application. I know we had an ask at the last meeting regarding a property adjacent to this, where there was some storage of some, I believe it was asphalt or other materials. Did we determine if that was within the village limits or if that's with Jerome Township?
So the storage of that material, I believe what we're talking about is within the village.
Okay.
In terms of the operation that's going on the property, that separation, that is not in the village.
Is that permitted within the village, the storage of those materials in that way?
The storage is carry over from a construction project, a village construction project.
Okay.
Yeah, I do recall, Mr. Cahall going out to that area and, you know, checking to see, and what I understood was that area was not within the village. There's a small cutout. If you look, I think it was even in one of the drawings here, there's a small rectangular cutout kind of right up against the big Darby that is not within the village. And that was what I believe is where that was at. And I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, that's just what my recollection was.
So
Because we had some
Which-
conversations with Nathan.
So I think.
which activity is
I
it that you're
think what
discussing?
came up, there was two different items that came up. There's a pile of
Aggregate
debris
spoils from when they did the grinding on 161, when they did the resurfacing.
that sits near, Mr. and Mrs. Bailey's property. And then
Okay.
there's also an operation that they're doing something back, by the banks of the Darby, and there's debris there. So that operation that Mr. Jaskowitz is speaking of, not within the village.
Okay.
We-
Because I think the concern with that, right, is any runoff into the Darby from that activity happening. So that is within Jerome Village, or in Jerome
Correct,
Township.
correct. And I know when Mr. Cahall was here, he did notify the EPA of the matter. Now, where it went from there, I don't know, and I can't speak to that.
I know a guy in Jerome Township that can follow up. So, okay.
You know him well.
They do. All right, I just wanted to address that because I know we discussed it, you know, last time and the Baileys brought that to our attention, so. Moving on, new business, we have nothing on the agenda. Last item we do have is discussion, zoning code update for the residential design guidelines. We need to get a working session scheduled.
Yeah. So, Mr. Swink and I had a conversation based on his comments, so I could get a,
Do we want to pause for a second, let people leave if they're heading out?
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Thank you, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hey, once I get that list, if I have any questions, can I call her from your office?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't want to get distracted.
no worries.
Alright.
Makes sense.
Please proceed.
So Mr. Swink and I met, we had a conversation based on the comments that he submitted to the group, just so I could get a better understanding and take that back to our consultant. We could work through some of those comments. But just kind of wanted to revisit that so it's involved anybody's radar, if anybody else had anything additional. Figured a work session, just dedicating a chunk of time to that would be probably the best idea, so that's why I put it on the agenda as something we talk about, when may be a best time.
So
If it's something we schedule during our same meeting block or another time.
I know we talked about last time with, what's the developer? I can't remember right now.
Madison Meadows, whatever.
Yeah, what's that?
The DR board.
Yeah, with that group of scheduling some type of broader working session, right? So that we can have developer input as well and, I mean, just really address everything. Can we integrate that together?
That would work with me. My suggestion would be then to not do it in conjunction with a meeting, just to be mindful of everybody's time.
Yeah, as much as I don't want another thing on my calendar,
Right?
it's hard to disagree.
Would you think, I mean, looking at February, because my goodness, I can't believe we're already almost out of January. So we meet on the 16th. Would you go into kind of March? Or is that too late? giving,
I don't believe so. I mean, because the steering committee's meeting at the end of this month. We'll take all of that back and probably convince then in February. So, I don't think March would be too late.
would March 9th? Because it's a Wednesday, I don't think there's any other committee meeting on that second Wednesday at the moment. Because council work session would be on the 2nd, and then really, besides Parks and Rec on Tuesday, there wouldn't be anything else that would be for staff's time. Or when, yeah, because BZA is,
Not until.
Third Tuesday.
No, we don't have
Not
any scheduled meetings on that.
BZA's not until the 15th. of
Okay.
If you're talking about March.
March, yeah,
And then we meet again on the 16th, is that right?
yeah.
BZA is typically just subject to whether we have any applications.
Correct.
And what is a work session exactly? Is it, it's a closed
No.
or is it open?
It's open.
Okay,
It would just kind of, I mean, it's kind of like a,
just a meeting
A
without.
bit of an open forum, almost.
A meeting without an agenda, I guess, or?
Yeah. You
They have
still-
an agenda, but it's more,
more for
how do I
kind
say,
of,
it's more isolated tasks that the council meeting is really the business meeting where we go through the agenda of all the different committees and resolutions and legislation, everything, whereas the work sessions are more for planning,
Internal.
goal-oriented issues,
Okay.
kind of things that don't really fit within the business meeting, where it's a little less formal discussion among council members to kind of, but it's still a public meeting.
Sure, okay.
For the public aspect.
Yeah.
and yeah, not knowing what's coming down the pipeline in March, if we'll actually have anything on the agenda for planning commission, maybe it's good just to hold a date in theory, and then
Yeah,
if it doesn't
Okay.
happen, we
Yeah.
can just keep on our.
Yeah, I think we can maybe just pencil that in for the 9th, and then as we get closer to March, if nothing comes up on our normal agenda, we just
Move it
move it to the
But
16th
it will
during our
also
normal
be
time.
dependent upon the availability of the D.R. Horton folks to come in and.
But I think
I
we're
think it-
extending that as an opportunity for them. I don't think we have to have them. It's a nice to have, right, to get some of that input.
I put it to all of our developers at the moment, kind of like set the stage and give them like the opportunity to come have input.
Yep.
That way when they present us something, they're not surprised at what we're looking at.
Yeah, I think we just, give it to them as tentatively on the 9th, subject to move to the 16th, depending on.
Sure, I might
zoning.
extend the offer as well to the BIA, because they're kind of the representative of the Builders Association. So it might be good, if not all of them can come, maybe a representative from that entity, can be here.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Adjourn.
That's what I was looking for.